Hello, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, there's an epic battles Hail Caesar sprue in front of us, the Romans. So Warlord Games very kindly sent me up some sprues to look at and do some stuff with before the release, and I'm delighted with it. So rather than just doing a traditional show up the sprue and talk about the bits on the sprue, what I thought I'd do things slightly different, and I've going to do a video where I've actually painted the sprues, and I'm going to talk a bit about the history and the background to the models and the details you're seeing on the models. Because in case you don't know, I do history talks once a month. History is my real thing, and the Punic Wars is a period of history I'm quite up on. Hannibal, I've certainly done a couple of talks on Hannibal. There's actually some videos on this channel where I look at sort of using miniatures to talk about crossing the Alps, battles of Cannae, Trebia, etc. The other thing is my pronunciation is going to be all over the place during all these videos. I would apologise, but it's just me. It's just how it goes. But anyway, there's the sprues, Roman sprues. You'll have seen them, some really nice pictures, Warlord Games website. And actually, there's some really good painting videos so far on Miniature Realms as a YouTube channel as well. So yeah, go out, have a look around, see what people are saying about them. This is how I've been going about painting my epic battles of late. So black undercoat, wee dry brush of white, or sometimes just a wee dusting with zenithal highlights there. Because I'm using a combination of regular paints and sort of contrast paints, find that just that wee bit extra shadow adds depth to the models. The other thing you see there, when I cut them off the frame to cut them, so I've got a wee piece to hold on to while I'm painting. Zenithal on some of the infantry there, so you can see what it does to the shields and helps give you some nice deeper shadows in the recesses on those shields. And looking at the back there, boy, doesn't have to bring out the detail. The backs of the models are superb. Mainly because I found it a bit tricky to get some nice smooth colours on the shields, but the backs came up lovely. But you'll see them later on. My other decision there was whether I assembled the blocks of infantry and painted them, or whether I painted them separate and put them together. I painted them separate, put them together, just sort of getting at the detail. Thanks to Stuart from Miniature Realms again for that wee painting tip. But anyway, this is it. This is the Roman sprue painted up. So the sprues are designed to work together. So unlike the other epic battle sprues, where one sprue will give you a regiment of pike and short or a British line infantry, these sprues will combine with other sprues to give you the formations that you need. So this Roman sprue has one unit of one base, so one base of elites, one of Hastii, one of principals, one of Triarii, and a couple of cavalry as well. I think it's 4 bases in a box. Hail Caesar, you're probably going to use 2 bases for a unit. You could use 1, you could use more. It's the beauty of the Hail Caesar rules, is it's quite flexible how many bases you use. Another thing to look out at here is I plan to have a primary colour for each one of my sort of legionary formations. And for my first legion, I've gone for red. So all the models will have an element of red on them to tie it together. Now, we don't know exactly what colours different legions use. Certainly if you play Total War, Green Romans, I think, is the Brutii faction. And blue is the Scipio faction. And the Romans do look really good in those colours. But yeah, first legion's going to be red. My second legion will be based around blue. And for that, the ratios I'm going to be using is probably 2 units of Triarii, 4 units of Principal, 4 units of Hastii, 4 units of Elite. A unit of heavy and a unit of light cavalry for each legion. So I was saying about the backs of the troops before, I thought they painted up really well, really enjoyed it. So the Roman Legion. So the Republican Legion was formed by the citizens of the Republic. So every March, you gather together and draw lots on who would be serving, and then you'll be divided up via wealth, i.e. how much equipment you could buy, and experience, how old you were as well. The criteria and what changed over the period, and Rome at this period were basically just Italy. It had subdued and fought with the Italian states and was the dominant power in Italy, so it could still form up legions on a yearly basis and go out. Now, the Republic was formed after the death of the Roman kings, so there were always rules about no person being more powerful than anybody else. So they elected two consuls who got equal share of command of the army so that nobody could become that tyrant. So the poorest members who had little equipment, maybe the youngest as well, would be the light, and which were skirmishers. So as you see here, they've got shields, they've got bronze helmets, they've got thrown sort of javelins, and a bit of weapon. Often they would have wolf skins as well. The wolf being the emblem of Rome, if you go back to Romulus and Remus and the founding of Rome. So they were the Velites. And actually, that was the same in many sort of tribal cultures. So, like the Gauls, for example, the younger warriors would maybe be used as skirmishers. So, skirmishers would go out in front of the main battle lines and engage the enemy skirmishers. If the enemy had skirmishers and you had no skirmishers, it meant your battle line would be under fire. And it wouldn't be heavy fire, but it would be enough to nuisance them before the main clash. The other thing skirmishers were good for is when you are on campaign, having those light infantry to go out and maybe raid for supplies and provisions, maybe scouting the enemy as well. You'll notice I've not glued these down and based the models, and this is the same for all the models I'm showing off today. I actually think about doing wider bases, 60 by 30. Give a bit of extra depth and do a bit more work on the bases in terms of sort of grass and sand, but also on the sort of tribal forces, maybe put a few skirmishers in front of the lines to show the more irregular formation. Also, some of the sort of Gauls might be bodyguard units, so I can actually put a commander leading those bases as well, just with that wee bit extra space. Because these are the poorest troops, I've gone for more plain linen colours. So this is like a greeny white that I'm going to use for my Romans. And I'll take like Racar flesh for the linen for the Numidians, for example. The Iberians, they actually like to use brilliant white linen, so I'll probably keep some pure white for them. But that is the lights. So the next set of troops will form up is the Hastii. Now the Roman legion formed on three lines, the triple axis. They'd adopted from what you call phalanx warfare. So phalanx doesn't always refer to the big Macedonian phalanx, but the phalanx was a line of troops hastily, tightly packed together, maneuvering in line, fighting in line. So the Romans, I think during the Samnite Wars, had found the Samnites kept retreating into the hills, and phalanx warfare doesn't do well when there's a lot of terrain. So they adopted this maniple formation. So a maniple is a block of 120 soldiers, and it give it flexibility of maneuver. And the Romans would deploy these in a checkerboard formation. Front line would obviously be continuous frontline fighting, and the checkerboard formation allowed you to maneuver those maniples through between each other as required, replacing worn out maniples. Even within that maniple as well, there's a speculated system of soldiers being able to sort of come back from the front ranks to the back ranks and refresh. It's because the Hastii, coming back to Hastii, they were the front line of the main troops. They were generally poorer, so that's why I've gone for that white or green sort of more subtle colours, because dye is expensive. Keep that red stripe down the middle, tight to the whole legion. Other things to point out, I've done the helmets and shield rims bronze. Over the course of the Republic, that bronze will get phased out into iron, so it's possible some units might have iron, some would have bronze at this point on the shield. Helmets were generally bronze. So that's the front Hastii. In the back of the Hastii, You'll see I've kept the same colours on the shields, the green and off green. Now they've got the colours of the linen has no relevance to the colours of the shields. That's actually really liberating, just being able to run down and paint it how I fancied. Other things to point out on the back there, the only armour they've really got is these a piece of bronze on the back plate and a front bronze plate as well. So as it has the eye. But the thing worth noting is when the legions formed, Rome was split up into tribes. So various members of each tribe would form in each legion. So obviously the younger, less wealthy members of the tribe in the Hastii, there's going to be an impetus on them to fight well because you're going to have more senior members of your tribe further back in the Principes and the Triarii, which is something I hadn't really considered until recently when I started thinking about making this video and what the advantages would be to have your sort of lighter troops in the front rank. Certainly tribals that they were fighting the Gauls, the richer, more expensive, well-equipped sort of nobles of the tribe, they will push their way to the front and generally be better fighters for it. So the Principals, so keeping that red shield, very similar armed to the Hastii. So we're talking about having javelins, well, not javelins, pilum. So they'd have throwing pilum and also thrusting pilum. They had formations of using those thrusting pilum as defense against horses, for example, cavalry attacks. Big scutum shield. So their swords and their shields were inspired through fighting and using Iberian mercenaries. The helmets and chainmail inspired from fighting the Gauls. Rome innovated a lot about its army and changes and weren't afraid to make changes. One thing did stay constant was its drill and its efforts to retain a strong infantry force. The other thing about these we're going to be doing is I don't have the transfers at the moment, but all the transfers will be different on the shields, showing the individuality of the Roman legionnaire in this period. And there you go. Back again, just a random mix of red and yellow cloth there. Lovely detail coming out. That's Principles. Next up, we have the Triarii. I didn't quite get the yellow smooth as I'd like on the shields, but again, I'll see what transfer work exists there. So a couple of things to point out for the Triarii. So there's 1,200 Velites in the Legion, 1,200 Hastii, 1,200 Principals, 600 Triarii. They fight more in the sort of phalanx formation, so they don't have pilum. They have long thrusting spears. Notice the helmets as well. A bit more of the Greco style there than the Gallic style we've seen earlier. Famous phrase, it's all down to the Triarii. As the Legion would fall back, if the Triarii had to fight, it would be the final throw of the dice, as it were. But they've got the experience to know hold the ground. They've been in fights before. And again, armor chainmail, just like the Principals. The other component of the Legion was the richest troops would form the equites, as we'll get the word equestrian from, Latin for horse. And these were 300 attached to the Legion, so bodyguard duty, escort duty, messengers. The Romans didn't really rely that heavily on their cavalry in warfare. What I've done is kept the reds for these. Because they're richer, I've actually used gold on the helmets instead of bronze. Again, the shields will have individual sort of transfers put on them. Now, out with the Roman structure, they also used auxiliary troops, mercenaries and allies. It wouldn't officially be called auxiliary until much later. So legionary structure is all about heavy infantry. Well, there's light infantry, but generally heavy infantry and a small amount of heavy cavalry. So you can imagine they'd be using light cavalry as allies as well. So there are a couple of light cavalry on the box there. Because the allies have just kept them fairly basic linen. and their saddle cloths are different colours as well. Keeping the red shield, so it ties it to the Legion formation that they're part of, but again, they'll have some quite individual transfers put on those shields. And here he is, the man himself, the commander. Really nice model. Enjoyed painting him, looking quite resplendent on his horse. With this as well, when I come around to basing them, generally mount all my commanders on round bases. So that's it, the Roman sprue. I really like it. There's a shocker. I love the Epic Battles range. So I am got my ordering for Hannibal. Looking forward to delving into it. I mean, I've still got loads of pike and shot. I'll just get my head of steam with my pike and shot, and then Epic Battles Hail Caesar comes along. But it's awful being a hobbyist with so much choice. What's coming next? So Italian allies. So these allies can be for Rome or for Carthage. So once they're painted up, I'm going to do a whole talk on the Italian allies. I think they get a bit of a short shrift. Don't get talked about enough when we're talking about the Punic Wars and the role they played specifically for the Roman armies. And then I will be looking at the Iberians. I had a 6 mil Iberian army, so I'm well placed to talk about the Iberians and the Carthaginians. At the moment, I don't have the Gauls or the elephants, sprues to talk about yet. But you know what? When it comes round, I will get those out. So that's my Romans so far. Really enjoyed painting them. I've been really busy with a lot of other projects on at the moment, and it was a joy to find the time to delve in and paint them. But anyway, that's the end of this video. I've really enjoyed talking about it, talking to yourself. If you've got any thoughts, comments you want to share about it, drop them in the comment section. I do try and answer most comments. I hope you're having a great time gaming at the moment. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to chatting to you in another video. Goodbye.